Pope Leo XIV's decision to make his first foreign visit as pontiff to Turkey is not an incidental travel choice. It's a deliberate gesture towards a nation that stands at the meeting point of Christian origins and Islamic heritage of East and West, of Constantinople and Istanbul. His presence in the Blue Mosque the other day, the Sultan Hamid Mosque, is a moment that speaks to centuries of contested history, painful memory, but also the possibility of renewed fraternity. The population of modern Turkey is overwhelmingly Muslim, yet Christianity's roots run very deep. Greek, Armenian, Syriac and Latin communities have lived there since the Apostles. They've endured dramatic decline over the last century, shaped by property seizures, political pressures and forced migration. Nevertheless, these communities remain resilient, guardians of a shared heritage. Their leaders have spoken with cautious optimism. The recent atmosphere of state openness, restitution of confiscated properties and renewed dialogue has allowed Christian life to reassert its presence. Against this backdrop, the image of Pope Leo, shoes removed, white-socked, stepping quietly across the carpet of one of Islam's most iconic mosques carries weight. He didn't pray aloud, though he stood in silence with respectful attention. The Vatican later clarified that the pause was one of contemplation, not liturgical prayer. The intention matters, not performance, not confusion of doctrine, but reverence. He was there as a guest, acknowledging the faith and devotion of the worshipping community without appropriating their practice or creating theological ambiguity. This is entirely consistent with the Catholic understanding of prayer. As St. Paul writes in his first letter to the Thessalonians, pray without ceasing. The Christian tradition includes silent contemplation, the Jesus prayer, the Eastern monks, the simple acknowledgement of God's presence. Pope Leo's quiet stillness in the mosque stands in that lineage. Prayer is not only spoken petition, but active, attentive presence. And in a Muslim space where constant worship rises like the rhythm of the tides, his silence reverence was a respectful participation in that atmosphere without trespassing into syncretism. And the significance becomes clearer when placed into the wider story of Vatican-Islam relations. The Second Vatican Council's declaration, Nostra Aetate, 60 years ago, opened a new chapter affirming that the Church regards Muslims with esteem, recognizing their respect for the worship of the one God, the devotion to prayer, fasting, almsgiving, the veneration of Mary. Since John Paul II first set foot in a mosque in Damascus in 2001, the papacy has worked to build bridges, emphasizing common ethical ground, while also defending persecuted Christians across the Middle East. Leo's stance on Gaza during the current war, strongly condemning the mass killing of civilians, aligns closely with the moral arguments advanced by Turkish leaders. This convergence doesn't erase differences, but demonstrates a shared concern for justice. It allows Turkey to present itself as a partner in international dialogue rather than a state defined by conflict or suspicion. And for Turkey's Christians, it is a reminder that their presence is recognized at the highest level and not forgotten. The setting intensifies the symbolism. The Blue Mosque and Hagia Sophia stand in tension just across a courtyard, the great cathedral of Eastern Christianity converted into a mosque, then a museum, then a mosque again. And Pope Leo chose not to visit Hagia Sophia, avoiding any controversy that could overshadow the purpose of his journey. Instead, he's taken a step that indicates respect first, diplomacy through courtesy, dialogue before dispute. There's also the aesthetic and spiritual resonance of his visit. Istanbul's great mosques, especially those influenced by the genius of Mimar Sinan, embody a theology of beauty expressed in light, geometry and space. To contemplate their grandeur is itself a kind of devotion. It acknowledges how faith inspires architecture that lifts the human heart heavenwards. The Pope's appreciative gaze recognized the transcendence these structures manifest, not as competitors to Christianity, but as monuments to humanity's longing for God. And in that sense, his visit is not merely political, it is sacramental in its own small way, a small movement but full of meaning, silence that speaks. Interfaith initiatives can drift into shallow sentimentality if they're not rooted in truth and respect. A small movement but full of meaning, silence that speaks. And it's the Pope Leo's gesture that avoids that danger. He didn't pretend all faiths are the same. He affirmed that coexistence is not built on erasing difference, but understanding it. And by standing respectfully in a Muslim house of prayer, by meeting with Orthodox Syriac and Armenian patriarchs, by expressing solidarity with minority communities long under strain, the Pope has modelled how authority can be exercised with humility It's diplomacy informed by theology, recognizing in the other not a threat but a neighbor. In the world we inhabit, fractured by war, manipulated by national pride, deafened by ideological shouting, such a moment matters. It suggests that dignity and neighborliness are still possible, that ancient enmities can soften, that three great monotheistic traditions, all heirs of Abraham, might yet find common ground in the simple act of walking together barefoot upon sacred carpet. Pope Leo's visit to the Blue Mosque may have lasted only 20 minutes. Its significance will endure much longer.